Hello, and welcome back to the Creative Life Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Qureshi, but you can call me Q. In this episode, I talk with textile artist and tai chi instructor, Natalie Durkin. We discuss what it took for her to reclaim her creativity as an adult and make it her occupation. And we talk about the benefits of paying attention to our drunken muses when they tell us to do random, interesting things. Welcome, Natalie. Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
We've never actually met in person. I've seen you in person.
Yeah, we hugged but didn't speak.
We were at a book launch. A couple of our friends did an anthology that came out last month, and so I saw you at a bookstore, but they were reading and we couldn't talk. And anyway, I know you from that one of those friends who introduced us online. And when I found out, what kind of stuff you do, I was like, well, she just has to be on this podcast. So I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here. This is super fun, and I love getting to meet new creative people. So I am equally thrilled.
Woo! Okay, listen, I'm going to start with a question.
Okay.
Because I just want to kind of break the ice and get you chatty. So the first question I have for you is, tell me about a thing, the thing that you feel most proud of that you've done creatively. Like, what's something that you're super proud of and you think the whole world should know about?
Oh, well, most recently, and it's a little bit potentially out there, but I did a huge 5-foot by 5-foot fabric portrait of Admiral Horatio Nelson.
Wow.
And it's kind of a big deal because I'd never done a fabric portrait before. So not only is it a subject matter that just kind of beamed into my head out of nowhere, it's also a task that I had never done before. But the voice that I've learned to listen to that kind of comes in with very specific, emphatic, and often random things was like, you should do a fabric portrait of Horatio Nelson. And I'm like, okay, like what? But, I did it. And I figured out how to do it. I taught myself how to do it, and it isn't completely finished, but it hangs in my workroom, and it stares over me when I'm doing my stuff. But that piece, in and of itself, is pretty remarkable for having never done it before. But it's also the springboard from which it's got me to kind of my current creative art niche that I'm marketing and using. So it was a gift in skills, but it's also a gift in creative outlet. So without this, I wouldn't be talking to you right now because it was the textile art that kind of Roanna connected us to. So yeah, I'm very proud of that for a whole host of reasons.
I like that your muse is also drunk all the time, as is mine. Like, I get the same kind of random ass ideas. You should do this. And rather than being a skeptic about it, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, let's figure that out. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. So that's amazing. I don't think a lot of people follow those impulses. And I think some of it is because of fear, obviously. Why do you feel comfortable listening to your drunken muse?
Well, it's got a track record with me. So the drunken muse has come through at pivotal times in my life with suggestions that have always been good for me. Go sign up for martial arts. Like I was, my friends and my family laughed at me because I was the one trying to get out of PE, through my whole life. Like, so, you're gonna break boards and bricks. What? But I did it and became a black belt, and I'm still a martial artist, not in Taekwondo, but in Tai Chi and Kung Fu. And, so that drunken muse voice back then, 25 plus years later, I'm still doing it. Same thing of, hey, you should quit your job and go to massage therapy school. Okay, you should, while walking my dog one day, you should get a Tibetan medicine Buddha on your left arm as a half sleeve tattoo. Okay, like I've just, because of its track record of giving good advice or it turning out well, I have an easier time listening to it when it comes through.
That's a beautiful answer.
Yay.
And it occurs to me that we are quite similar people. And I love that. Like I do. I love people that just do things that don't make sense. And yet they make sense. Right. And especially in retrospect, like when people and my family is constantly looking at me like, what the hell are you doing? But after a certain point, they just sort of backed off and realized I have a voice that's telling me what to do, and I listen to it,
Hmm.
and it knows what's best. So back off. So were you? I mean, is this something that you developed? This sort of what are we going to call this? Let's call this artistic impulse. But it's not always just artistic. But there is a creative impulse here,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That transcends just art. And at what point did you realize that that was something that was part of you and that you needed to pay attention to?
So my story is almost a more of a redemptive arc because it's in my DNA. When I was growing up through high school and starting college, if I didn't create something daily, like I was not thriving. Like and what I would create could be different. It could be crocheting, it could be cooking or painting or drawing, just you name it, I did it. And theater, like I wasn't really into singing, but music I was. Like I played piano, I played guitar. I just couldn't get enough of it. And I was good at it, and I was getting, awards and my work, and was being sent to kind of school citywide shows and whatnot. And I was convinced that this was going to be my life's purpose and that I was going to, pursue that. But, it was one of those were well-meaning parents who thought they were doing well. Basically, I mean, the exact words were, and she'd kill me for really be mad at me for airing this, but it's a sentence that I still struggle with. And it was, Natalie, it doesn't matter how good or talented you are never going to be that lucky. And
Hmm.
as rebellious and up yours as I was to my mom face to face, those doubts crept in and the insecurities. And well, and she's my mom. I mean, she's been around longer than I, but maybe she knows what I don't know. And whether I like it to admit it or not, those doubts crept in. And so by the time I went to college, I kind of did this, what seemed at the time to be a compromise. I did a degree in art history, not just straight up studio art. I mean, I had a minor in painting, but I was like, look, it's analytical, it's respectable, but it really was reneging on myself. It wasn't the right fit. I was doing it for other people. And
Yep.
it started me down this spiral of not feeling like I had an inner compass and really losing touch with my creativity. I would look at things that I had done earlier and I was like, I don't even know how I did that. Like, how did I do that? I can't even connect with the experience of, I know I did that, but I don't know how. And, I would tinker with things here and there, but it really is a recent development that I'm finally like owning that part about me and saying, no, 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 this is what you're going to do. It's about time. Like I owe it to myself. And it still is challenging to trust that and stick with it and not get scared and not revert to, yeah, but, or how are you gonna, and this, just all those the decades of kind of the negative self-talk. So it's a challenge, but I feel committed to doing it. And with each piece that I'm currently doing, I feel stronger about it. I love the reactions that, and it's not that it's all about reactions, but it brings me great joy to see people get excited about
Sure.
what I make, either for myself or for them. And so, the more experiences I have with the positive reception, it helps me give that positive feedback to myself, which is really, where it's at, where it needs to come from.
Seriously. Did you ever do the artist's way? You know that book?
I dabbled with it. I think I did some morning pages for a while, but I never seriously like did the whole thing.
Yeah, it's writer focused, really,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
is fine. But she says it applies to all kinds of artistic endeavors, and there's a lot in there that I'm just like, I kind of stay away from the God talk as much as I
Hmm.
can, but
Hmm.
I really appreciate the frame that she uses, which is it's basically a 12-step program
Yeah.
for creative recovery, right?
Hmm. Right. Right.
And I think a lot of us, especially people that I personally know right now in my life, that I'm talking to, we had those creative impulses and we were very passionate about it and we got talked out of it. And at
Hmm.
some point, we just lost it. And
Hmm.
it's in middle age when you start doing that. I don't know how old you are, but I am definitely middle aged. And you start doing that sort of calculus, like how much longer do I have on this planet? And am I doing what I want to do with my life?
Right.
And then you start realizing, well, shit, I don't want this time to go without being able to do what I really want to do. And it's
Right.
not even about achieving status or impressing people. It's really, I just want to live my creative purpose. I mean, it's
Right.
what I want to do with my life. And frankly, I'd rather eat beans and rice
Yeah.
than, eat steak and have to sit in
Right.
a goddamn cubicle all day.
Oh yeah, the cube farm. I landed it not just cube farm, but dead end, low paying, soul sucking cube farm. It was so
Ugh.
bad for so many years. And the drunk muse voice that it was, dying in cube land. It was like, hey, you should go to massage school. Like I am not, was not a touchy feely person. So I'm like, well, that's full of beans. Like this is a terrible choice. But I did it, and I ended up being really good at it, and I enjoyed the problem solving and helping people, because focusing really and learning about anatomy and physiology, which in a way was creative. It was, get to, I know we're not supposed to diagnose and treat, but for lack of a better word, to create a treatment plan for people coming to me in pain or, with a postural imbalance. But that was a huge pivot that the drunk muse was like, hey, get out of that cube farm and go do this. And I did that
Yeah.
for, 23 years until my body gave out on me, which at that point was the impetus to say, hey, rather than go get a second dead end nowhere, hate it job, why don't you get back to that part of you that you left way back there? Give yourself the chance to do what you knew was right for you, but you lost track of that. So figure it out. Go do it. Just dive in.
Yeah. This is not uncommon, but it's also universally terrifying because we do live in a society where there's very little support for people
Mm-hmm.
who don't want to be on the corporate track, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
a diminishing, I don't know if there ever even was, value in art that comes from real people who are putting their heart and soul into it. We're just
Right.
flooded with cheap bullshit that people feel comfortable buying and putting in their house or using. And it's really, really challenging. And I hear from a lot of people, but you're not some independently wealthy trust fund
No,
baby, right?
no, I am not. Mm-mm.
So how did you what gave you the courage to take the leap? Because so many people that I know would love to take that leap too, but they're really petrified.
Well, I think honestly, 23 years as a self-employed massage therapist helped. That's not exactly, I mean, some people can be really, excuse me, lucrative at it, but that was not me. I never wanted to own a clinic. I certainly didn't want to employ people. Like that was just, and I knew that there was a cap. There's only so much body work one person can do. So I was, my income was when I was working. And if I wasn't working due to illness or a pandemic or, insert market swing here, I wasn't working. I'm lucky enough that my dad is able to help. But, again, we're not crazy wealthy trust fund people, but he does believe in me. And so after, he helped me some through the pandemic, and I got COVID, and then I had a bunch of orthopedic surgeries, that made me off work. And so, he helped me a little bit there. I also I have a part-time job at a local tai chi and kung fu school where
Mm-hmm.
I teach, and I'm responsible for all the enrollments, kind of the program director role for the school, but that's not a full income either. So I think just kind of having been comfortable with being uncomfortable financially made it less of a risk because I'm not, it's not like I was earning six figures at Dell or, at Tesla or whatever, that wasn't me. And so
Yeah.
in a way, it made it less of a high stakes risk because what really do I have to lose? I'm not chucking a super comfortable, affluent lifestyle or career path in order to pursue this, but it still felt really scary. It still does feel like, oh, I don't know about this. And I don't, I'm 50, I'll be 51 in January. And it's like the world of social media. Like one, I don't love it. And two, I don't understand it. And three, it's like, I don't really want to dictate my life. Well, don't post that at this time because the algorithm will kick it. Like, this is not
Yeah.
my world. And so I'm struggling a little bit. Like, why can't it be like it was when in 1991? Like grouchy Gen X person, like that would just be so much more rad. But it's not. So I'm I'm trying to like, oh, look at me. I made a reel and I put a caption on it. Woohoo. I mean, like I'm learning and I'm trying to be less curmudgeonly about it, but it's that fear, the fear that how you market yourself and how you get yourself out there is so different from how it was when I was kind of starting on my creative journey 30 plus years ago. That feels like a big roadblock, but I'm telling myself, well, what are you going to do? Stop? Don't stop. Figure it out or figure out a way to make it work for you without doing all that stuff. Like just keep going. That's kind of a roundabout answer, but I just really didn't have a whole lot to lose. And I felt from a soul inner compass level, like it's so long overdue to give myself this opportunity that I took away from myself back when I was 18. So
Yeah.
it had a deeper purpose to it.
I feel like that's, you're really self-aware about this stuff. I just want to say, I'm going to be 50 next year also in March. And, I worked in marketing for a long time, online, like 20 years.
Hmm.
And so I'm fairly comfortable. I mean, it moves fast and it's definitely not a career for middle-aged people. I mean, it takes a lot out of you. But what I will say is, I think the quote unquote power of the internet for independent artists is actually overblown. And by that,
Mm.
I mean the power of selling shit online. We have it in our heads that it has to be all numbers. You have to have X number of followers, you have to have all these metrics, and you have to do things a certain way. And really, you said things are different than how you would have done it in 91.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
think that we still do it. I still do it the same way, right?
Mm.
Like you
It's a good point.
can go into marketing and like buy ads and do all of that shit, or you can just use the internet as an extended or enlarged pool of people that you have contact with and
Yep.
that you work in that way. And frankly, I think that's, I mean, it's a slower burn, but I think it's a longer burn. And I
I
think it's a
agree.
way to
Yeah.
build a reputation. Yeah.
And yeah,
So
it's not about this many likes or going viral. It's just about sustaining and slowly building, a further reach with people, which I relate to that from, being a business owner for 23 years. It's like
exactly.
it doesn't happen with clicks. It happens with, relations and relationships and communication and interactions with people.
And you only really need, like, this is the other thing, is for you to make a living off of what you're doing, you don't need 99.9% of people on the internet to pay attention to you,
That's very true. That is
right?
very,
You
very
only
true.
need that
Yeah.
0.1% of people who like what
Yeah.
you have and figure out where
Correct.
they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Very true.
So I want to say that because I don't ever want anyone to feel discouraged at any age or to think that success hinges exclusively on being able to have a certain technical competence or being able to do certain things or have a certain number of followers, because I think that's bullshit. And actually, I find it revolting. I loathe the culture that we've created
Yeah.
with like
Yeah.
online influencers and commerce and this. It's
I hate
disgusting.
that. I hate that word. I hate influencer. I mean, it's an innocuous word, but it's taken on such a vile,
Yeah.
meaning and connotation. It's replaced artisanal. Like that was overused and really turned on its head a few years ago. And now it's influencer. It's like shudder, just but you're right. And for me, I just know that I have a brain and some conditioning that will latch onto any, maybe not any at this point, but oh, see, you're doing it wrong. Like I have a big candy red button that's like you're doing it
Mm,
wrong.
mm.
And I've learned that a lot of times some of this, oh, you'll never make it, you don't know how to do that, or the things have changed and you'll have to figure out how to be an influencer to be successful. Like no, 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 you're this is the thing that's protecting me, quote unquote, from doing it wrong. So just, keep going, ignore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Agreed. Okay, so please explain to the listening audience exactly what your art is. What is it that you
yeah.
do? Yeah.
So I have a really new to me too, but I have a niche of using repurposed and upcycled secondhand textiles, scraps, or things that other people didn't want, and I create fabric paintings with them in a technique called applique, which You can think of applique as like, oh, when you see a backpack or a baby blanket or a towel that's got a cute little, it's not a patch, but like a little
Yep.
fabric picture on it. And that's fine and good. But what I do is it's almost like it's not paint by number. That's not it at all. But it's like I will take an image, I will digitally flatten it so I can break it down into its values and its tonal scales. And then I will find little pieces of fabric to match that. And then I create an image with it. And then I sew each individual tiny little bit of fabric down, whether that be for a portrait of Admiral Nelson or a portrait of someone's pet, or I just finished somebody just asked me to put a gargoyle from the Notre Dame Cathedral on a messenger bag, so I create these images that are basically paintings with fabric, with the added creative layer of limiting myself, except it's not a limitation. It's actually it's a benefit to use repurposed textiles. So I don't buy retail for any of my stuff. If I can't find it at Austin Qreative Reused or gifted or repurposed from something that I have on hand, I don't do it. And I think it comes from I often reflect, like, how did I get here? Aside from the drunken muse voices that do this, but I have had if I look through a thread of my creative process, I have always been attracted to pattern, and I always incorporated a lot of mixed media collage work when I was in high school and college. So I think it's sort of a spin-off or an evolution of collaging. And so when I was able to look at fabric from that perspective, it hit a new level of excitement and passion. Textiles was never really my thing either, except I got into them from the pandemic when, like so many other people, I crash coursed myself in how to make masks, and I made hundreds of them.
Oh yeah.
And I had all these scraps. I had bags and bags and bags of scraps, and it just felt completely inappropriate to throw them away, but I didn't know what to do with them. And I'll admit, I had a negative connotation of quilting. No disrespect to any quilters out there. I thought it was like Midwestern grandmothers that made these amazing things, and that was just not me. And
Yeah.
when I realized that I could just throw a bunch of scraps together and not cut them into uniform pieces, and not, it could really be just as far out of the box as I wanted, I decided to use those mask scraps to make a quilt for myself as a commemoration of commemorating the pandemic, but just that weird, extraordinary, crazy time in our
Yeah.
lives. So that started that. And then I did a few more quilts. And again, I was like, I really like reusing other stuff. So it was by reusing my mask scraps that started me on the reuse aspect of things. And then I realized I love the cutting, the piecing, the designing. I do not love quilting. Like I would not call myself a quilter. It gets to that point, I'm like, can I outsource this? And the answer is yes, because I hate it. Like I hate quilting. Like I love making the designs, but when it comes to doing the fancy stitching, nope, negatory, hate it. So with this applique, I'm not really quilting. I am stitching pieces of fabric down, but I'm not like sandwiching it, batting it, and doing all of those things that I don't like. So
Ah.
if you would have asked me a year and a half ago if I would be doing this, I would be like, what are you talking about? Like, and let alone be really surprisingly freakishly good at it. Like I don't know where it comes from. I kind of just get in a flow state. I don't accept no for an answer of myself. If I look at something, I'm like, that seems crazy bananas hard. I don't know how I can do that. It's like, we'll do it anyway. Like, and then kind of treat it almost like a dog with a rawhide bone. Like, don't give up, figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I actually get excited about the more complex an image is, because it pushes me creatively, which ultimately is good for me. So that's, textile portraits with reused textiles is the short version of that, but it's kind of a meandering journey of getting there.
Well, that's fucking awesome. I
Thank
mean,
you.
this just sends me where did this come? Like, it's been buried in you and it was just waiting to come out. Like, you just had this flash of inspiration, and now you're doing this thing you never thought you would be doing, and you're kicking ass at it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
how
pretty
many of us
crazy.
have that? Yeah,
I,
like it's amazing.
well, thank you. It dovetails with my love of history too. Like, I will do whatever people tell me, but I mean, if they, it's like, hey, would you put, like I said, I've done a couple of pets, I've done gargoyles, I'll do, friends, I'll do whatever. But, when I can get a little bit of breathing room, I want to do a whole series of like historical figures in larger, like wall hanging size fabric portraits. And so, I struggle with how to do the incoming commissions with the work that I want to do because it's very
Mm,
time consuming. It's extremely time consuming. I've had people ask me, well, where can I buy your stuff? I'm like, these things take like 50 or 60 hours, dude. Like, I don't have an inventory, that you can just come to my store. Here's 20 of them, choose from. Like,
right.
it's, maybe at some point I'll get there, but that's not where I am yet. So it's sometimes I feel like I can't keep up with my ideas or, trying to sustain myself with some financial income doing what people are asking me to do versus what if the reins were just cut loose, what would I do if money weren't an option and I didn't have to pay rent and any of these things, like the things that I would make then, trying to keep both of them in sight and not, lose track of either one is a challenge.
It sure is. I talked to, in my last episode, I was talking to somebody about this. We were discussing the balance that we have to keep between making sure that we're doing what we want to do, but that we're also marketable. That's not your primary goal, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, the reason people make art or the reason why people do these creative things is because they want other people to appreciate them, to enjoy them, right? To
Absolutely.
engage with them. And
Yeah.
so you really have to take that into consideration as much as I hate it. Like I would love to
Right.
tell the whole world to fuck off and just do what I
Right.
want. Right.
Right. Right.
But nobody gets to do that. And then honestly, is that what you want? Like I could write a novel. I am writing a novel, but I could write a novel and then be done with it. But is that really what I want? No, I want people to read it. Of course I do. It's not even
Right.
about
Right.
making money. I want people to read my book. But in order to do that, like I have to, take into consideration what people want to read. And, I mean, you really have to walk that line of how much am I willing to compromise on my own
Mhm.
artistic weirdness
Right. Right.
to make this palatable to people that out there. For everyone it's different. Like you have to be the one to make that judgment, and I think that also shifts over time. There are
Hmm.
times when maybe you're a little more concerned about bringing in income and
Right.
you're willing to make that sacrifice, but it's not an uncommon thing. I think any creative has to go through it.
I
Oh,
think
go
it
ahead.
evolves. I mean, I think it's going to always be there, but it won't always necessarily present the same way. But I think it's a ubiquitous, ongoing balancing act for any creative person. And what it looks like today is very different from what it might look like a year from now or 6 months ago. So it morphs.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. How do you decide? I mean, and aside from the drunken muse, do you like how do you decide what you want to be doing? Like if somebody came along and was like, here, Natalie, here's $50,000, take 6 months and produce something, like what would you love to do?
I'm a history junkie, and
Uh-huh.
so right now I am just neck deep obsessed with 18th and early 19th century British naval history. So if I could take like a whole thing and do a series of larger pieces of Royal Navy Napoleonic Wars stuff, items to be determined, portraits to be determined. I'm not totally sure yet what I that would just be like the skies would open and the angels would sing. And I know that's an extreme niche thing. If the gates were off and it was like go, that's what I would do. But at the same time, Holbein is super interesting. Like it would be very cool to do a bunch of Holbein portraits in fabric,
Mm.
it doesn't take much to get me excited. It can be challenging for me to limit myself because I'll be like, "Ooh, that's cool." And, "Oh, what about that?" But those are two things that speak to me right now. The thing that, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want people to discourage asking me for these. The ones that freak me out the most are pet portraits, and I'm a
Uh-huh.
huge animal person. I am an enormous animal person, but I feel extraordinary pressure when someone asks me to do a pet portrait because I know people are just bananas attached to their dogs and they are their cats and when they and there's a connection and an essence there that you feel with your pet and I don't want to miss it. Like what if they're like, well, they didn't get that, and it doesn't mean that it's not visually accurate, but I've noticed I feel a lot of pressure when I'm faced with they've so far turned out fine, but they stress me out. to,
Yeah.
to do.
No, I that's perfectly understandable.
Animals
Yeah.
don't stress me out. I love them, but it's like doing someone else's animal is like, oh God, I hope they like this.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about with your sort of I got Napoleonic stuff, which is
Yeah,
just so
and I'm
random.
not a fan of Napoleon. It's like
No, no.
I don't understand this like well, I guess I do in a broader context, but where we find ourselves globally and this trend towards totalitarianism and authoritarian, like maybe that's why. But I'm like, to quote a mutual friend of ours, like, who stands on Napoleon? Like, no, like he's not cool. Like he is not cool. But the the technology and the history of that era is fascinating to me. I lose it at Battle of Waterloo. Like, I'm not interested. Like, I am not. It's like Nelson, yes. Wellington, no. Like, I'm real specific. I'm like, Nelson. Nelson was very supportive and caring of the rank and file sailor, and he wanted to make sure they were healthy and looked after. Whereas Wellington, he called his infantry, scum of the earth. I'm like, yeah, not cool, buddy. Like you're sending them out there to get mowed down, and that's what you think of them. So, it's a little bit personal. Like, yes, no, no, a historical figure, I approve. You go away.
But this is art. Like this is
It is.
actually art. Like I could see that. I could see those things. Like maybe there's no like you're not going to sell that shit on Etsy, but I could see it
Right.
hanging in the Blanton, right?
Yeah,
Like that is
yeah,
actual art. Yeah.
yeah.
And the reason why isn't just necessarily because of the technique, but it's all of this stuff that you have thought about and your your interest in it and your desire to frame that period in a certain way. Like all of that is what it means to be a serious artist. And so,
And and I loved, even when in high school, I just remembered this. It's like you'd think I wouldn't forget, but I did. I would take whatever Shakespearean tragedy that we would read as part of our literature. I would take it, I would condense it down to like a 20 or 30 minute uh fast-paced parody play and would put it on as like Shakespeare lunchtime theater. And the first was like kind of a joke, and then the second one like, oh God, she's really good at this. And then the third one, like I found that like the lower school or the middle school would like change their lunch schedule to like have them come watch so it was like a thing. And my whole point was for people that like, I don't want to read Shakespeare, like don't let the language stop you. These are stories that are very relatable. They're very soap opera-y. They're very entertaining, but because the English is different, you think they're lofty or not, but they are not. Like, everything that I've kind of amplified up here in 30 minutes, it's all in there. Like I didn't make any of this up. It's there. And, the same thing attracts me with historical figures is trying to find a way to make them relatable or accessible today. Like, on my Nelson portrait, yeah, he had all these medals around his neck. And in one of them I put a peacock because he was like, look at me, look at all my stuff. So it's the medal, but if you look at what's in the medal, it's a little bit of a nod to, one of his personality foibles. So I love making little touches like that maybe don't resonate with everybody who sees it, but anybody who knows, if they look closely, they'll be like, oh, I see what they did there. That's pretty cool. So I love sticking in those little details or allusions to something that makes them less distant and more accessible.
how are you so confident in this? Like a lot of people, and I'm included in this. I'll think about, oh, I should do, even when the muse tells me, I'll be like, oh, I should think about that. And then I'll try it and I'll just kind of dip my toe in and then I'll go away. And it might take years for me even to do anything with it. But it's like you got hit with this meteor and
Yeah.
now you're just like, I am fucking doing this. Everybody watch out. And it's
If
pretty
I
amazing.
it is, but do not be fooled. I have an entire room full of works in progress that I haven't touched in years. Whether it was like a paper collage portrait, like a Tonka paper painting of a green Terra. I found it the other day. I'm like, oh well, I should probably get back to that. I mean, I'm not going to, but yeah, I was really onto something cool there. Or like how many unfinished Afghans that I don't touch, but they're half done. I don't know why this is sticking. I don't know. It kind of coincided with a life shift and, for lack of better words, divine intervention, but not in any kind of traditional religious sense. And so it was like a few things kind of coalesced at one time to kind of literally knock me over the head. And this came out of that. So I think the force, or whatever you want to call it, whether it was from me or from the universe or whatever, whatever kind of pushed me into this came in such a way and from such a manner and out of kind of a dark place that it felt important. And so it's been easier to stick with it. I'm surprised myself because I often by this time would be waning in my interest. Like it would has lost its sparkle and it would kind of get put in the other part of the room where it never gets touched again. And it hasn't happened yet. In fact, I feel like I'm still getting better at it, which is exciting. So I don't know where the confidence comes from, but I am grateful that it feels right. For the first time in my life, I'm finding myself kind of I know some people who are gifted sewists, really, really, really good, but more in like tailoring and clothing. And I'll show them some of my pieces, and they're like, "Oh, well, look at what you did." My old pattern would be like, "Oh, wow, I guess maybe it's not that good." And I've found myself going like, "Well, you clearly just don't get it, and I don't know why you're being rude about it. Like, I think your clothing is incredible. Like, can you not reciprocate? No, you can't. Fine." So it's been healing for me to kind of have that to have this confidence that's not always been the case for me. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the hallmark to me that you're aligned with whatever. I mean, I don't
yeah,
believe everybody has a single purpose, but I
right.
think that we all have these predispositions and I think we all have natural gifts. And when you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, when you're
Hmm.
using all of those things that you're supposed to be using and really being fulfilled by your art, then I think that you have that confidence. And it's like what you just said about like being able to look at somebody else, even with a history of, doubting yourself and somebody else who's really competent or critical, to be able to say, you just don't get it. I mean, that is the essence, in my opinion, of being an artist, of being somebody who's truly connected with their creative power and
Mm-hmm.
knowing that this is the thing that they should be doing and nothing else is going to matter then. And, it's what I like, that is the kind of thing I strive for. I mean, that's what I want out of life. I
Yeah.
want that feeling of alignment with, this is the thing that makes me happy. I know it's good. I don't have to justify it. I don't have to impress you. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It feels amazing when it
It does.
happens. Yeah.
And I realize that in its odd, specific way, working with these upcycled or repurposed secondhand textiles scratches so many niches because I've always been about like most of the stuff in my house, and it is stuff that's like either antique, and I don't mean from an antique store. I meant it was my grandmother's or my mom's, or like the coffee table was what they had when I was growing up. Like I've never, my entire life has had this coffee table in it. Like, and it's just that I don't even think about it. It's just like, so I don't do a lot of buy new. I don't do a lot of discarding of perfectly functional furniture or plates or place settings or this kind of thing. And so to be able to use things that are already here and to make them into something different or to make them look expensive or to take like on my Nelson portrait, one of my favorite things is I put some laurel wreaths over or sprays over his head, and the material is this disgusting 70s velour, like fake velour tracksuit, like I don't know, drapery, like it would set the whole house on fire if you got a match anywhere near them. I mean, it's just horrible. But cut out into these little leaves and put in place, it looks like this lush velvet. Like it looks so much higher rent than it ever was. And I love making those little transformations of elevating not just the lowly, but kind of the heinous. So
Yeah.
if I can take a really gross, seemingly unusable piece of clean, but otherwise skanky fabric and turn it into something opulent, that just brings me tremendous joy. It's like, oh, look, a glow up for something you never thought would happen. So it's sustainable and it's turning expectations on their head, like you think that's terrible, but look how good it can look. Like, I mean, all these things that have been intermediary little bits and things that got me fascinated or passionate about, I get to kind of play with them all at once, which I've not found anything like that hasn't happened with painting. Even if I go buy used paints or, this kind of, it hasn't been the same. It hasn't had the same like sparkle to my crow, like, ooh,
Uh-huh.
sparky thing. So to be able to do all of those things, it's like I never would have thought that working with textiles would have been the way to make that happen, but it's scratching a whole bunch of itches, which feels good.
That's amazing. And like I said, I think the thing that's most mind-blowing about this is that it wasn't like you were indoctrinated into the textile arts.
No,
Like you
no.
just had this impulse and you followed it. And I think there's something to be said for that. I think there's something to be said for being willing. We're joking about the drunken muse, but
Right.
I don't think that it's extraordinary. Like I think everybody gets these crazy ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously, some of them are just, you can't follow every crazy idea and nobody has unlimited resources. But if you get a crazy idea and the bar is low, just try it. And even if you fail,
Oh
you've
yeah.
built up this sort of muscle of paying attention to this, subconscious or unconscious desire. And
Mm-hmm.
the next time something comes along, you'll try it again. And I think eventually you'll find this thing like you have that just sticks, that just, wow, this is the thing I've been waiting for. And that sounds really kind of woo, but I
Yeah,
think that's
but
how
it's
it's
true.
done. Yeah.
It's completely true. And I am grateful to myself that over the years I have cultivated I mean, I know I said I have a big I'm doing it wrong button, and this may sound like it's contradictory, but it doesn't feel like it to me. Like I'm okay with making mistakes. I am okay with things not being perfect. I mean, I can be a perfectionist in a whole host of other ways, but when it comes to like execution of like if a stitch isn't right where I want it, I don't care. Like it's like that kind of stuff has never been a deal breaker for me, and I know it frees me up because I'm still learning this process. Like when I was doing the first Nelson portrait, some nice little lady on the interwebs who was giving me the tutorial about which double-sided iron-on adhesive, she did not specify that one was to be used with a sewing machine and one was it's going to destroy your sewing machine. It's permanent. Don't do it. She didn't specify. So of course I end up with the wrong one. And I did all this work before I realized I've used the wrong adhesive. And I'm like, am I going to screw up my sewing machine? Because here's the deal. I would rather buy a new machine than redo this work, which um, I didn't start over and I made it work with my machine and I didn't kill it. I just changed needles all the time and I learned something from it. But, I was able to pivot and kind of roll with it rather than think, oh no, it's over. And that was so much work. I better just start again. It's like I embrace it as part of the process, which is such an important thing for people trying to pursue something creatively. Just don't it's okay if you mess up and your mess ups may actually become gifts. I'm very grateful for that aspect of my creative process because I know it can be a real booger to have that voice that say it all has to be right
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
I can keep going.
Yeah. I had a email exchange with my friend Katie yesterday. Shout out. Hey, Katie. And she had just responded to my newsletter that I sent out and was talking, she also writes. And her comment was, I have to remind myself every time I sit down to write that you're supposed to let yourself suck, right? Like you can't be
Right,
a creative
right.
person unless you suck. You have
Yeah,
to get comfortable with being terrible at something before you can be good at it.
yeah.
I also had a podcast interview with a author, Lori Silver. She's going to be on another episode. And she had written 4 books in a row. She'd quit academia, decided she was going to write books, kind of a similar type of thing, just like this
Yeah.
is what I want to do now. And so she's writing these books and they're super intense, like from the like they're mysteries, they're crime novels that take place in like 3rd century Baghdad, which was her
Wow.
area of
Wow.
study. Yeah. It's so, you want to talk about niche, right? Like super niche.
Uh-huh.
And, she wrote the first book and, then she finished all 4 and went back and she was like reading the first one. She's like, this is just terrible. She's just terrible. And a friend of hers said, listen, your first book is Love Me Do. And your last one is Hey Jude. And that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Like even
yeah.
the greatest rock band, right,
Uh-huh.
had,
Uh-huh.
they had an evolution that was visible and there's no shame in that. And it's okay to have
And it's
something.
part of the process. Yeah.
Yes. And it's not even a comparison. Like they're both good.
No,
They're both
right.
good songs. Right.
Yeah.
So, we just culturally, you tell me, why do you think we're so goddamn obsessed with trying to be perfect and not allowing ourselves to do what is perfectly normal and natural and put ourselves out there as a constantly evolving creative person?
Oh gosh, I don't, it's everywhere. And yet, where did it start? Maybe it started with, when the colonization of Europeans started here. Those were some pretty hardcore, rigid people, right? I mean, and you lived a certain way and you thought a certain way and you dressed a certain way, and there were serious repercussions if you screwed that up.
That's
You
true.
will not deviate. And so I always wonder if there's some current thread of that still underpinning a lot of what makes us, as Americans in particular, tick, right? It is
Yep.
they left other places because they were too far out. They were too rigid for some pretty rigid places. And with rigidity, you lose a lot of creative outlet. So I don't know, and then keep up with the Jones. And then we can talk about the industrial complex thrives if we feel like we have to keep buying stuff. And if to buy stuff and have homes, we've got to work a certain type of job. But it just, they get us hooked on a narrative pretty early on. And you could go your whole life without realizing that there's another way of doing it.
Yeah.
That's my completely unscientific assessment of it, and I have no idea if it's right, but I think
This is not a science podcast, so we're
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, I feel like it has to have some thread to that.
No, I think that's right. And it actually, I think, it's in schools too, like elementary schools, where
Mm-hmm.
our whole idea around education is that there's right and wrong, and your job is to try to be as right as possible all the time. Right.
Yeah.
And that anytime, and like failure, F is literally failure. And it's shameful, and it's, you get punished.
One of my most prized academic experiences, and I say this as a joke, was I got an F plus on a vocabulary test once. I'm like, I failed well. Like, what? I went to a prep school, and these vocabulary words were just bananas. Like, you either actively studied them or you have no idea what they mean. Doesn't matter if you know Greek or Latin or German. No. These words were nuts. And I just didn't study. And I'm just like, well, I can't even guess because I didn't look at the book. And when I saw that F plus, I mean, that has always stuck with me. I'm like, I failed, but I failed well. Well, and the sense of humor of my teacher to like put that plus at the end of the F. Like, I just, somehow that has always stuck with me as a badge of honor rather than a failure.
I like that. Maybe you should just get a T-shirt that says F plus on it.
F plus,
big red F plus. Yeah,
F plus.
I like that.
Yeah.
I kind of want to make that like I don't know.
It's a thing, right? It should be a thing. Yeah.
Feel well if you're gonna do it. And we're all gonna do it. You might as well.
We're all gonna do it. Yeah. Just embrace that F plus.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. Like I do, because these are the big things, right? These are the big things that prevent people from following their creative impulses. And the point of this podcast really is about encouraging people to center their creativity in their lives. And that's going to look different for every single person. But in order to do that, there are things you have to overcome. And a lot of it is cultural indoctrination about what art is, what it means to be a creative person, what it means to be successful, right? All of this stuff. I never really like it. It's almost a form of, not therapy, but like, in the process of writing a novel, right, I've learned so much about my own hangups, right? Because you really have to confront, like the creative process forces you to confront a lot of deep-seated weirdness that you've accumulated. Because when we're kids, unless you're in a terrible abusive environment or, a refugee or, some other terrible situation, if you're a fairly well-adjusted kid, at a young age, you're quite open to this. Little kids are weird and crazy, and they try different things, and they make messes, and they have daydreams. And I was a weird little kid. I was always making weird shit.
Uh-huh.
And then at a certain point, you start to feel bad about it or awkward about that. And you start to hide those things and you start to lose your, I don't know, your connection to that creative part of yourself and that
Well,
fearlessness.
and the expectations that your world starts to put on you, whether it's school or parents or socially or what, you're sort of told or expected to focus on other things. And then you, at least for me, it was you don't necessarily intentionally put that creativity aside, but all of a sudden you look and it's not there anymore because other stuff has taken over, and then it
Yeah.
feels too hard to get back to it.
Yeah. Boy, that is a fact. And when you finally get to it in middle age, like I did, there is almost a deprogramming that you have to do. Like you really have to put the effort into digging out these awful thoughts and
Yeah.
feelings, and then
Yeah.
also making it possible. Like I didn't even know where to start at a certain point. Like I was like, how do I even start with this? And that took, I had to do some really basic unfun things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I had to discipline myself to get up every day and write. And I had to do these certain things that were just not fun. But in so doing, I've reopened that creative channel for myself and I feel much more confident and blah, blah, blah. But it felt really shitty in the beginning. Like I was like, why am I even trying? Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I've lost it or it's gone forever. It's not. I think we have this innate creativity. And like you said, I don't think it goes away. I think it just we lose track of it. We ignore it, we suppress it, we bury it, but it's still there. It
Yeah.
is still there for everyone. And I do believe that actually. How do you make sure that you're staying open to do you have any discipline around or disciplines around your work at this point? Or is it really just, and it's perfectly fine if it is, because a lot of people are this way. Do you just go and just do it? Or do you have to like do certain things to get you to the point where you're ready to do your work? Okay.
It's a little bit of a combination. I am prone to, I don't want to say overworking, but like if there's something that I feel like I have to get done, I will sit down at my sewing machine or stay in my workroom and 10 hours go by and I'm like, have I gone to the bathroom? Have I drank any water? Have I eaten anything? Like, and I'm not encouraging, like I would discourage that. Like, that's not cool. But, just this week I've done 5 straight days of that and I wake up with a migraine and
Mm.
because I've been cutting too many fabric bits and this, just too much. But what do? I just take an Excedrin, lay back down, and then I'm gonna do it again, right? So there's some of that. And some of that is necessary when there's like a time crunch, like a holiday, and I have to get things delivered in time for people to gift them, like because that's an obligation that I took on. Sometimes you just have to plow through and do it. Other times somebody will give me a commission and I totally want to do it, but I cannot make my brain box come up with how to make it happen or what to do with it or how am I going to do that. Like that image is really contrasted flat. Like there's not a lot of shade there. Like I got to figure that out. And I look at it and I come back and I look at it and I come back. I've got one of these now. I've had it for months.
Mm.
And thankfully the person is understanding with my process, but I feel like I'm doing it wrong. But when it comes to me, I'll crank it right out. And so I'm trying
Uh-huh.
to be comfortable with accepting that that is just part of my process. Some things I can just like, bam, got it, done. Whoop, let's get after it. And others I'm just like, yeah, I can do that, but it's not coming to me yet. Like, not there yet, and I can't force it. And if I force it, then I get resentful about it, and I get irritated, and then I procrastinate, like all these things. Where I find that if it's right, and if it's the idea is there, there isn't any of that. So if I'm feeling that kind of resistance to it, it's probably not time. And I want to judge it. It's so knee jerk for me, like, well, you were just letting people down. It's like, well, have they told you that? Like, maybe you should trust them. Like, if they haven't said that, then it's probably okay.
Yeah.
So it's just learning to kind of, some days you really have to push it, and then sometimes don't force it. If it's not there, it's not there today, and it will get there. And that even if I'm not actively working on it, my brain is, and it'll land on it. It's just still, I got the little spinning wheel of death right now while it's still working through how to do it. So, I think discipline wise right now, I have a thing where I try to post something every day. And I don't just mean like some bullshit thing, but like try to find something that would be engaging, entertaining, interesting, informative, or pretty to look, about what I've been working on. So I try to do one post. I try to think about my art, even if it's just once in the morning, think about what I'd like to work on, or something that I would like to work on, or somebody I would like to work for, or a piece I might like to do, so that even if it's not sitting down and actually creating something, I am putting my brain in that space, even if it's just for 5 minutes. At least that way I'm not ignoring it completely where you can get sidetracked and
Yeah.
all of a sudden a week goes by and you haven't thought about it at all.
I think this is another fine line, kind of a tension that you have to live with as a creative person, and that is waiting for the inspiration
Mm-hmm.
versus making yourself do something even when you don't feel it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not always appropriate to do one or the other, and you have to be the one to make that call.
Right.
And it's just, and I actually feel like that is what makes an artist an artist. And so I'll give you an example. I had committed to write a novel this year. I started writing a novel, put a whole bunch of work into this novel and began, and I found like I couldn't make myself write. Like I would
Yeah.
sit down, I would just be like, I can't do this right now. It's just, and a
Uh-huh.
part of it was that it was just really heavy, like emotionally, it felt really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, God, I mean, I want to write this, but I don't think I can. And so I was just walking around, I don't even know, and I got hit with this idea for this completely ridiculous story. And that was it. I was like, oh, hell
There
yeah,
it
it's
is.
on. Right. Yeah.
There it is.
And
Yeah.
boom, I sat down and went into it. But I think if I had forced myself,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had that. I had to make
Right.
space for that. And it would have been a drag. And I may go
Yeah.
back and finish that one. Right.
Sure.
But
Right.
I had to do this. This is so weird because I'm not this person, but it feels very metaphysical.
Uh-huh.
It does.
Oh
It
yeah.
feels like
Yeah.
there's something inside of you that's like, nope, nope, that's not for you. This is what you need to do. And
Yeah.
your job is to make sure that you're just open to it and paying attention. And you can't do that if you're forcing yourself to do stuff that you don't want to do. Right.
Right.
If there's
I agree
anything,
100%.
yeah, if there's anything I've learned this year, it's that you have to make space for art, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
to have
Mm-hmm.
those periods of time where you are floundering or you're not sure. To be in this constant state of productivity is actually really, really bad for you as an artist
Yeah.
because it
Right.
doesn't give you that freedom to think, take things out and look at them from all angles and follow random rabbit holes. And that's where you find some of the crazy, amazing shit that,
It's true. Yeah.
yeah, right.
And trying to and learning to embrace that what feels like a drought or a disconnect from your creative process is actually part of the creative process. Like that's not,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't that it's gone. It's that no, this is how it goes. And just hang, write it out. You'll find it'll hit you. The right thing will come up. And you'll be like, oh, there it is. There it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
When you least expect it, it's
Yeah.
just boom
Yeah.
right there and it's done. It was done in my head. Like I was like, oh
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy how that works. It's really nice to be able to talk to somebody who understands that because my husband
It
does not
really is.
understand this.
Oh, well, you can talk to me about it anytime because
Thank
it
you.
always
Thank you.
does me good. Yeah.
No, no. I mean, I think, if you're not involved in this kind of process, and I also think we are, unless you were, unless you were trained from a really early age or had an extraordinary upbringing where you were encouraged to follow these kinds of impulses. I think that we're all really insecure when it comes to our creativity. And there's something to be said for age and experience, because when you have done this enough times and you start to get that feeling like, oh shit, where's it gone? I don't have it
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be able to do it again, or I'm not going to be able to keep doing this. You don't freak out. You realize this is part of my process. This is how it happens.
Yeah.
And you have a certain amount of grace and patience for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that does make it easier. Because it's just like terrifying to set out to do something and then realize, oh my God, I've dried up. I don't have,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
have it anymore.
What if it doesn't come back? What am I going to do? Yeah.
Right, right. but that's just part of it, and everybody goes through it. It also helps, again, this is why I'm doing this podcast. It also helps to hear that from other people.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
So in that regard, what's your creative community like? Do you have people that you're regularly getting feedback from and support and encouragement?
I have a few friends and a couple of family members that I will send either works in progress or here's what I'm thinking, or could you take a look at this and what do you think? And I have a variety of, they have different purposes. I have some really, I say critical in the right way, like, oh, I'm not sure that's the best way to resolve that there, like actual art, visual design eyeballs, which that's very helpful. But then also those that are just encouraging or like, that's amazing. I can't believe you did that. Keep going. So I don't have like a formal community, but I do a lot of texting and little short videos to small cohort of people that kind of steers me or gives feedback while I'm working on pieces. And I'm also a big believer in walking away from something for 15, 20, 30, sometimes an hour or two, and then come back and you're like, oh, that needs to be different. So I can be my own community sometimes in that.
Yeah.
I like to tell people one of the reasons why I learned Tai Chi was because I could do it by myself. Like I've never really gravitated to like group learning. I mean, I'm an only child. I've got step siblings, but I'm an only child myself, and I'm an introvert. I can be super social, but I need to recharge in solo time. And so, this has worked for me to just be able to reach out one on one to a few people while keeping my eyes open to opportunities that feel like that I could hang with. I'm a member of a few creative groups on like Facebook. There's a group someone invited me to of people that just make stuff from scraps. It's not all repurposed scraps, but there's scrappy textile work and connect with people there. That seems to fit the bill for me at the moment.
I don't think everybody needs the same kind of community. And when I say community, I really mean who are the people that are giving you the support that you need and whatever
Yeah.
your needs are. Like if you don't have a lot of needs, that's fine. Whereas I know some people really benefit from and want to be around other people while they're doing their work, right? Like I've never been a coworker. I'm just not a person that's going to go sit and do cowork. But I'll do it maybe one-on-one with somebody at a coffee shop or something, but I'm not going to do like a big thing. And yeah, that's fine, to each her own. But I also do think it's important to have people that can reflect back to you what you're trying to do and at least give you the inspiration and encouragement when you need it. And you don't need everybody. You just need a couple of really good ones.
It's true. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, before we go, let's have a little talk about Tai Chi. I also do Tai Chi, although I'm certainly not a black sash. Yeah. It was something I stumbled into before the pandemic, or was it after? Yeah. I just started doing it. I actually, you know what it was, is I started doing Kung Fu.
Yeah.
A friend of mine recommended me to this school because he moved to Ireland, but he said, I went to the school. These people are great. Go there. So I went there, started doing Kung Fu, but it just didn't work with my schedule. And so I was like, well, why don't I just switch over? Because they do Tai Chi also. I said, why don't I just switch over to the Tai Chi? And I freaking loved it. And it's great because it challenges me. Like, it is not an easy thing for me. Some people really are embodied and I am not.
Well, and as a professional instructor, like I teach people, I wish in my utopian universe, which I know does not exist, I wish that all of the New Now Next articles that they write about Tai Chi would say, it's so easy. Like, it is so hard.
It's so hard.
It's easy on your body, provided you do it correctly. Because it will fuck you up if you don't. Tai Chi is good for knees unless you do it wrong. And so, and I see it with brand new beginner students. They get discouraged because the pamphlet said it would be easy. And then they get here and they're confused and it's complicated and they don't know what's going on. And what are you turning now? What's happening? So, and I hate that for them. It makes me sad because I'm like, stick with it. You will get it. It's just, I feel like a lot of the ways it's described in print and in health magazines and whatnot can lead to a mismatched expectation of how it is to learn Tai Chi. Because I'm like, doing Tai Chi is very relaxing. Learning it can be infuriating.
Boy, it sure can.
Yeah.
And you're right. You're 100% right. It is a martial art. People just don't get that. It requires an enormous amount of mental
Yeah.
and physical discipline and
Yep.
practice and consistency. And it also, and I think this is the most important thing about it. And this is what really made me an advocate because, I spent so many years just online and doing social media, and my brain was just fried. Like my
Mm-hmm.
attention span was fried. So I started, again, during the pandemic, I started doing like Zen meditation, and I
Yep.
started Tai Chi. And, to get me to the point where I could control my own mind and
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because for me, that's really important.
It
And it
is.
does that. It really does. And I have found that it's helped me in my writing so much because
Ah.
part of what I've discovered is that writing is also an embodied practice for me. And a lot of people think, oh, it's just a cerebral exercise. You just need your brain and something to write with. But in
No.
order for your brain to work well, and in order for you to consistently turn out what you need to turn out, it requires both discipline and focus. And it requires that you not sit there and like space out, or that you can
Right.
actually control your brain and your body, because you also have to sit. You can't just keep jumping up and running around.
To me, one of the, the fundamental underlying, if you had to sum up Tai Chi in one sentence, it would be strength in yielding, which is not do nothing, but it's learning how to get out of your own way, not use excess tension, whether it's physical tension, mental tension, emotional tension. It's learning to untangle that so that you can be fully present at any given moment and have access to whatever you need in any given moment, whether that's in a self-defense situation or a writing situation. I mean, and that's a really tall order, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm,
that's not an
mm-hmm.
easy thing to do, but it's powerful. Like, to just be able to even momentarily click into that, you're like, oh, and usually if I'm like, look at me, I'm connected, boop, gone, so,
Uh-huh.
but, I remember feeling my entire cerebral cortex like refile itself when I had heard my instructor make the analogy. I'd heard it a few times. I heard this lesson a few times, but I think it was the second or the third time that I heard it, it clicked. And because people always ask, well, why don't you grab in a self-defense technique in Tai Chi? Like, shouldn't you just grab them? And I remember my instructor, he said, Master Goring, he said, if I grab him, who has who? I am equally rigid and connected to him as he was when he was attacking me. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, like I said, I had heard that a couple of times, but that third time through, another year of experience, it clicked. It's like, oh, I don't want to be tight. I don't want to be overly, because if I'm committed, aka grabbing or holding tight to something, what am at the expense of what? Another idea, another option, another outlet, another possibility, another thing to do. And that doesn't just apply in martial arts, but in life, in writing,
Yep.
in creativity. So, I completely resonate with how it affects your creative process because be open, be yielding to the drunken muse, or,
Yes.
it give me the ability, like if something's going wrong with my sewing machine, maybe, just maybe it's not the machine. Like it could be something I'm doing or not doing. Have I threaded it correctly? Like instead of damn machine, piece of crap, it's like, well, hang on, is it?
Yeah.
So, and to be able to look at it that way without going, oh, you made a mistake. It's like, well, hang on, let's rally, let's reassess here. And so, it's such a gift. And I mean, the drunken muse got me to Tai Chi too. I was having some health issues where it like just feeling like going to the mailbox was running a triathlon. I used to do triathlons, and then going to
Wow.
get the mail felt like a triathlon. And I read an article that talked about fibromyalgia patients, which was not my thing. I didn't have that, but it was talking about how they put half of them in a Tai Chi group and half of them in sort of a coping skills meditation group. And the Tai Chi group, after 3 months, had better emotional outlook, less pain. And I was in a lot of pain. And I'm like, well, okay, sign me up. I don't know anything about it, but that's what I should do now. And because I was a massage therapist at the time, I understood physiologically and kinesiology wise, like how it was wired differently. And I'm like, oh, this is some good stuff. And so
Wow.
very quickly, I understood why it was good at what it did and knew I wanted to become a teacher. So, that's what I did. And then when a couple of years ago, I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, it turns out Tai Chi is one of the only exercises that's actually recommended for it. So I'm like, well, look at that. I landed there before I even knew that it was good for me. So that's, thank you, Drunken Muse.
And I just want to say that drunken muse actually sounds like a Tai Chi posture.
Doesn't it?
So I feel like we need to invent one to go, like instead of a precious chicken or like Tai Chi has all these.
Oh yeah,
those
Golden
don't
Rooster
know.
stands on one leg.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a big fan of repulsed monkeys. Good one.
Yes. So I feel like we need a drunken muse one.
I will work on that. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, Natalie, you have been very generous with your time, and I have enjoyed this conversation immensely. I
Me
really
too.
like you. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I like you too. I'm glad we found each other.
Me too. Okay. So I'll go ahead and put all your stuff there in the show notes so people can
Okay.
find you. And I do hope people will find you and encourage you by sending you commissions and
Thank you.
also praising your work and
Yay.
liking your shit on social media because
Yes,
that's
please
important.
like all my shit. Like my shit.